She doesn't love you. She loves control. And it is not a flaw. It is a law of power. What you mistook for affection was calibration. Every word a pressure point. Every silence a test. She doesn't want your soul. She wants your submission. And if you mistake that for intimacy, you deserve the leash around your neck. In every relationship between rulers and ruled, lovers and allies, friends and rivals, there is always someone positioning and someone surrendering. The weak call it chemistry. The strong know it as hierarchy. She touched your hand not to hold it, but to measure its tremble. She listened not to understand you, but to map your hunger. When she made you feel seen, it was only to see deeper, not into your heart, but into your limits. She cataloged your need for validation, not to soothe it, but to weaponize it. This is not a tale of romance. This is the anatomy of domination. You thought power wore a crown, but more often it wears a smile. You imagined it was enforced with weapons, but the sharpest blade is psychological dependence. She fed your ego only to hollow it. She gave you choices, so you'd feel free knowing all paths bent back toward her hand. Control does not always arrive with chains. Sometimes it walks barefoot, whispering your name like prayer. Sometimes it kisses you before it conquers you. If you don't understand this, if you don't feel it in your gut, you will never understand politics. You will mistake manipulation for love. You will call dependence loyalty. You will bow, smiling, and call it peace. The world is not moved by ideals. It is moved by leverage. She doesn't need you to trust her. She needs you to need her. Trust is fragile. Need is binding. One breaks in doubt, the other deepens with fear. And she knows fear binds faster than faith. Do you see it now? That behind every tender gesture was calculation. That even when she gave, she was taking. Not because she is cruel, but because this is the way of rulers. This is the nature of the game. Power survives by seduction, not force alone. The throne is not taken by storm. It is offered by those who no longer remember how to stand without permission. She doesn't love your strength. She loves your weakness disguised as devotion. She doesn't admire your freedom. She admires how willingly you gave it up. This is the first rule of dominion. Those who seek to control you must first make you feel seen. The tyrant does not begin as a brute. She begins as salvation. Ask yourself, what part of you let her in? What hunger did she feed to build her palace in your mind? Was it your loneliness? Your hunger for approval? Your secret wish to be led? You think you were seduced, but in truth, you were waiting aching to be captured. And now, you call the cage loyalty. You call the leash commitment. You worship the hand that holds your face not knowing it, holds your throat with equal care. She doesn't love you. She studies you. You are a landscape of useful reactions. She knows when to praise, when to withhold, when to vanish, when to return. Your psyche is her kingdom. Your cravings, her currency. This is not about gender. It is about structure, about the dynamics that govern all human systems from bedrooms to boardrooms, from republics to relationships. The one who understands human nature, the best, wins. The one who controls perception controls reality, and the one who controls your perception of yourself owns you. She doesn't argue, she frames. She doesn't demand, she suggests. She doesn't raise her voice, she lowers yours, until you're apologizing for things you didn't do, until you crave her forgiveness more than your own integrity. This is the machinery of soft power, to seduce the mind before it resists, to offer safety that feels like home, while slowly turning it into a fortress from which you cannot leave. She doesn't enforce rules, she makes you enforce them on yourself. And the worst part? You think you're choosing? You think you're acting from will, but your will was absorbed, reprogrammed, re-engineered to serve hers, like the citizen who defends the state that spies on him, like the soldier who fights for a cause he no longer questions. She doesn't need to fight for obedience. She grows it in you. She doesn't punish rebellion. She inoculates it with affection. She rewards submission just enough to keep you crawling forward, like a leader who feeds hope to a starving people to delay their revolt. This is not just about her, this is about the architecture of control itself, the systems we build and those that build us, the way institutions love us, the way ideologies cradle us, the way authority wears the face of care. Ask yourself, when was the last time you made a choice that was not pre-shaped by someone else's framing? When was the last time your desire was not a response to invisible conditioning? This is not paranoia. This is anatomy. This is the autopsy of power. She doesn't need to be in the room to own it. She lives in your decision-making. She shaped the categories of your thought. That is the highest form of conquest, not to force obedience, but to make autonomy obsolete. You love her, but love is irrelevant. Relevance is power. Relevance is control. And she, quietly, has become the axis of your psychological gravity. She doesn't love you. She shaped you. She doesn't seduce you. She programs you, with charm, with silence, with precise emotional cues calibrated to make you equate her presence with stability. And now, if she disappears, you collapse. That is not love. That is domination perfected. So you defend her. Of course you do. Like any subject defends a ruler who offers identity. Like any believer protects the church that gives meaning. You will fight to protect your own leash, because without it, you are lost. And she knows. Oh, she knows. She knows that the deepest prison is one where the prisoner guards the key himself. She doesn't love you. She trained you to need her. And if you don't unlearn this, if you don't tear out the roots of dependence, you will spend your life calling submission loyalty, calling emptiness peace, calling control love. This is how empires are built. Not with war, with worship. Not with bullets, with longing. Not with fear alone, but with the exquisite illusion of safety. She doesn't love you. She loves what your love gives her access, leverage, compliance. And you, like a nation under spell, offer it with gratitude. Wake up. This was never about romance. This was always about power. You thought your devotion made you strong, but it made you legible, predictable, contained. She doesn't need to outthink you when she can anticipate you. The fiercest tyrants are not the ones who shout commands, but those who whisper truths you want to believe. You let her in not because she was powerful, but because she knew where your guard was weakest. Power doesn't always arrive through conquest. It enters through consent, quiet, subtle, surgical. By the time you notice it, it's already entwined with your sense of self. And now you conflate obedience with stability. You tell yourself she is the anchor. You forget she is also the storm. Do not confuse her attention with intimacy. What she offers is not companionship, it is calibration. She learns your rhythms not to dance with you, but to conduct you. She reads your silence, not to comfort you, but to locate the seams of your resistance. This is the second law of dominion. Those who seek to rule must first dismantle the governed sense of inner sovereignty, not through force, but through psychological architecture. She doesn't conquer. She conditions. Look closer not just at her, but at all who seek influence. Leaders, lovers, ideologues, institutions. They do not always extract through violence. They do so through seduction of identity, of belonging, of fear disguised as purpose. She doesn't demand loyalty. She engineers it, like the state that feeds just enough fear of chaos to make tyranny seem like order. Like the leader who ensures the enemy is always just outside the gates, and only their grip can protect you. Power does not need to be visible to be total. In fact, the more complete the control, the more invisible it becomes. You think you chose her. You think you chose your leaders. You think you chose your gods. But how much of your choosing was structured by what you feared losing? She doesn't just love control. She is control embodied, aestheticized, weaponized in the softness of presence. You think you're loved, when really you are being kept curated, restrained, made useful. And in your desperation to matter, you make yourself small. You become manageable. You become hers. This is how governance works in the modern age, not through decree, but through emotional design. not through threats, but through psychological incentives. Not with fear of punishment, but with fear of abandonment. Because nothing enslaves faster than the terror of being cast out. She doesn't need armies, she has access. She doesn't need thrones, she sits at the center of your sense of safety. And that is the greatest throne of all, the one inside your identity. By now, you may feel anger, or perhaps shame. Let it rise, let it burn. These are not weaknesses. They are signs of awakening, the slow unbinding of your instincts from the narrative she wrapped around you like silk. But don't mistake awakening for immunity. You are still vulnerable because you are still human, and humans crave patterns. We long for someone to give the chaos form, to name our ache, to tell us who we are and what we must do to be enough. That longing, that need is the fuel of every ruler, every system, every seducer, whoever built a kingdom from the bones of obedience. You want to be seen. She sees you. You want to be guided. She guides you. You want to be held. She holds you until you forget how to stand. And in that forgetting, she is crowned. Understand this. She doesn't love you. She loves the gravity she exerts over you, the way your will orbits hers, the way you betray your own needs just to stay within her favor. This is not love. This is a transaction dressed as destiny. Strip away the illusion. See the machinery. This is power in its purest form, psychological, reciprocal, ritualized. You perform for her, and she performs for you, each feeding the other's illusion until neither can breathe without the other's permission. You are not partners. You are subject and sovereign. And even if you reverse roles, even if you take control, the structure remains. Someone is always watching. Someone is always maneuvering. Love, as most speak of it, is a lie built on the need to feel safe in the presence of another. But safety is not love. And love, real love, if it exists at all, does not enslave. So ask yourself, who are you when she is gone? Do you know? Could you walk without the rhythm she taught you to follow? Could you speak without filtering your tone through what would please her? Could you lead without asking permission silently, instinctively from the version of her still living in your head? If not, then the conquest is complete. She doesn't love you. She has reshaped you. And the greatest conquest is the one where the conquered sings the anthem of their captor with pride. But there is a way back. It begins not with rebellion, but with clarity, with seeing the structure for what it is, with naming the manipulation without apology, with feeling the loss without retreating into illusion. You must be willing to disappoint her. You must be willing to be hated. You must be willing to reclaim the parts of you she taught you to suppress, not with rage, but with resolve. Because freedom does not arrive with applause. It arrives with silence, with solitude, with the cold, clear recognition that power is not something you take. It is something you stop giving away. She doesn't love you, and if that destroys the illusion you built your world around, then let it burn. In its ashes, you may find something far more valuable than her love. You may find yourself. And once you see, truly see, you will never be ruled the same way again. Not by her, not by anyone, not even by your own hunger for control. Do not rush this reckoning. Let it carve through you. The pain of clarity is the price of sovereignty. You have lived so long in curated affection, mistaking it for safety, that the rawness of self-possession may feel like exile. But better to walk alone in truth than to sleep beside someone who owns your leash. She doesn't love you. She loves the equilibrium you give her, the emotional order, the predictable devotion, the rhythm of your sacrifice. To her, your loyalty is a resource. Your vulnerability is leverage. Your presence is territory. And she manages that territory the way any ruler manages a state, with strategy, with symbols, with the quiet erosion of alternatives. Until you no longer remember what freedom feels like without her architecture around it. You thought you were offering love. You were offering access. You thought you were building trust. You were becoming a dependent variable in a system not of your design. This is the geometry of power, the silent recalibration of space, time, identity. It does not shout, it organizes. And so does she. She doesn't argue with you, she reframes you. She doesn't restrict you, she redefines what you want. She plants the right incentives, mirrors the right behaviors, delivers the right silences. And you interpret them as emotional depth, as intimacy, as truth. But what you're responding to is design, a system engineered to draw you deeper into her orbit without ever revealing the blueprint. This is how empires behave. They do not ask for worship, they create conditions where worship feels inevitable. Look again. Every gesture of affection had a cost. Every moment of vulnerability required repayment. You were being groomed not to be loved, but to be manageable. You think you were accepted, but you were domesticated. She doesn't love you, she has domesticated you. And in your domestication, she feels secure. Because what she truly loves is not you, it is the control over who you become in her presence. Even your rebellion is factored in. She knows when to provoke it, when to disappear, when to return. Just vulnerable enough to trigger your rescue instinct. You think you're independent in your anger, but she's already controlling the emotional field. This is the third law of dominion. The ruler must never need to command, only to condition. She doesn't tell you what to feel. She creates the environment where only certain feelings can survive. She curates your emotional ecosystem, and you adapt, like any organism adapts to survive in a new terrain. Over time, you call this terrain home. You even defend it. You call your own adaptation growth. You call your obedience maturity. You call the vanishing of your own desires peace. This is how systems of control outlast their creators. They are internalized, ritualized, protected. She becomes a religion you can't name, a mythology you live inside, a spell you carry in your own voice. And you who once believed yourself sovereign, become the high priest of your own submission. It would be easy to call her evil, to blame her, to turn her into a villain and absolve yourself. But that too is a lie, a distraction. She is not the architect of all this. She is a practitioner of it. She has simply mastered the rules of a world you never bothered to study. A world where influence is the currency, not love. Where perception is policy. Where the strongest leash is made not of iron, but of need. She doesn't love you, she governs you. Because you handed her the instruments of governance. You gave her the intelligence file of your psyche. You revealed your pain, your hunger, your unhealed wounds. You declared your history like a soldier surrendering their map. And she read it all. She noted your patterns, your rituals, your triggers, not to help you heal, but to structure her dominion more elegantly. You thought that made her deep. No, it made her informed. And information is the scaffolding of power. This is why rulers surround themselves with spies. Intelligence is not about secrets, it is about vulnerabilities. The more one knows of your inner war, the easier it is to maneuver you toward the outcome they prefer. So she didn't just memorize your past, she became its interpreter. And now, even your memories belong to her frame. This is the final law of dominion. He who controls the narrative of your pain controls the shape of your redemption. You come to her not just for love, but for absolution, for guidance, for coherence. You let her tell you what your suffering means. And in doing so, you lose authorship of your own story. This is how power sustains itself without coercion, by taking ownership of meaning. She doesn't love you, she governs your meaning. And until you reclaim that authorship, until you tear your story from her mouth and speak it in your own unapproved tongue, you will not be free. Not free to love, not free to lead, not free to see the world beyond the lens she crafted for you. And when you finally walk away, if you do, it will not feel like triumph. It will feel like amputation. Because when someone has fused their presence with your meaning, separation feels like self-murder. But Endure it. Grieve what you gave away. Grieve the self you let her mold. Grieve the architecture you called love. And then begin, not with declarations, not with revenge, not with noise, but with silence. Silence is the soil of new sovereignty. And in that silence, build again, not faster, not louder, but with precision, with memory, with a heart that knows the texture of captivity. Because one day, someone will come to you, soft, strategic, familiar. They will say all the right things. They will listen. They will mirror. They will name your pain in the language you crave. And you will feel the pull. But this time, if you have remembered well, you will pause. You will remember that love that requires your obedience is not love. That comfort that costs your clarity is not safety. That worship of control disguised as care is not intimacy. And you will walk away, not because you hate her, but because you finally love something more than control. Yourself. You will walk away, not in triumph, but in stillness, without the need to explain, without the urge to retaliate, without the fantasy of being understood. Because now you know. Understanding is just another corridor she builds to follow you into the future. Silence denies her that passage. She doesn't love you. She loves being the gravity you orbit, and in your departure, the laws she mastered begin to fracture, because every system of control depends on participation. Once you stop responding, the machinery begins to rust. The impulse to return will come, not because you need her, but because your nervous system has been trained to find rhythm in her presence. You will mistake the discomfort of liberation for the warmth of familiarity. Do not fall for it. The cage always feels colder the moment you first step out into air. And yet, what a terrible, beautiful thing it is to finally feel the sharpness of your own senses unmediated. You will begin to notice the space between your thoughts again. You will remember how it feels to want something without second-guessing if it aligns with her expectations. You will speak in a voice that does not anticipate judgment. That voice is not new. It is ancient. It is yours. But to claim it fully, you must confront the part of you that let her in. Not her methods, not her masks, but the weakness in your armor that craved her control. That need to be seen, guided, needed, it doesn't vanish, it waits. And it will be the next portal for the next ruler in a different disguise, unless you close it. You must learn to stand with your hunger and not feed it to manipulators. You must learn to sit with your loneliness and not trade it for captivity. You must learn to grieve without needing an audience, to rebuild without applause, to be sovereign in the echo chamber of your own unflinching awareness. This is the mark of those who truly understand power. They know how to sit in their own silence without needing to be ruled by someone else's voice. She doesn't love you. She loves the shape you take when she is in the room. And now that shape is crumbling and something truer, harder, cleaner is emerging beneath it. You may think this is the end of love, but it is only the end of its imitation. Because love, if it is ever to mean anything in a world like this, cannot be built on control. It cannot demand obedience. It cannot survive only when you are manageable. Real love requires sovereignty, and sovereignty requires solitude. You must become whole enough to choose love as a sovereign, not as a supplicant. And to do that, you must walk the hard road of self-rule. No illusions, no borrowed scripts, no silent agreements that erode your soul one compromise at a time. She doesn't love you. She loves the version of you that kept her world intact. But that version is gone now. And what remains is dangerous not to others, but to the world that fed on your acquiescence. What remains is a man no longer afraid to be misunderstood. A man who no longer confuses need with love. A man who knows that influence dressed as affection is still a weapon. And who, having suffered under it, will never again mistake the warmth of control for the fire of truth. She doesn't love you, and that is your freedom, not because her love was worthless, but because your worth was never meant to be measured by someone else's need for dominance. You were born not to orbit, but to command your own gravity. And those who cannot stand beside you without bending your will are not companions. They are competitors, cloaked in the language of care. Let them go and walk, because sovereignty is not something given. It is taken, not from others, but from the parts of yourself that once believed obedience was the price of belonging. Never again. She doesn't love you. She loved control. But you are done being controlled. You are done being controlled. And that, more than any rebellion, any outburst, any speech, is what breaks the spell. Not the storming of the palace, not the dramatic severing, but the quiet cessation of need, the unceremonious exit, the decision made in absolute silence that your will is no longer for rent. That is what tyrants fear, not rage, not resistance, but irrelevance. She doesn't love you. She loved what your devotion made her feel central, necessary, godlike. You were the mirror that never cracked, the altar she could always return to. And now that mirror has gone dark, the altar cold. You no longer light the flame. And so her empire falters. Because power, when it feeds on the willing, cannot survive their indifference. You did not defeat her. You did something harder. You outgrew her. You became inedible. You stopped performing your part in the theater she directed. You dropped your script. You walked off stage. And without the actor, the drama dissolves. She may return not to love you, but to restore the structure. She will try to restart the machine. She will switch tactics, remorse, rage, nostalgia, logic, even humility. But you'll recognize the pattern now. You'll see the rhythm beneath the music. And more importantly, you'll hear the silence of your own soul choosing otherwise. There is no going back, because you are no longer the man who needed her permission to breathe. She doesn't love you, and now finally, you don't need her to. That too is love. Not the love of another, but the ruthless love of self, the kind that refuses to barter autonomy for attention. It is not romantic. It is not sentimental. It does not look like the stories you were told. But it is real. It is whole. It is uncolonized. You walk now with a different gait, not as someone recovered, but as someone reforged. Not as someone who survived her, but as someone who survived himself. Because she was never the ultimate threat. The real threat was always your willingness to trade clarity for closeness, truth for tranquility, identity for approval. Now you know, the enemy was internal, and so is the revolution. Let this be your doctrine. Power must not be worshipped, only understood. Influence must not be feared, only recognized. And love, real love, must not cost you the throne of your own mind. If it does, it is not love. It is annexation. Never again will you hand over your sovereignty in exchange for scripted affection. Never again will you misinterpret domination as devotion. Never again will you believe the lie that to be loved, you must first be broken into something more useful, more predictable, more soft. No, you are not here to be softened. You are here to be steel. Not cold, not cruel, but unbending in the face of those who offer comfort in exchange for control. You are not a citizen of someone else's emotional regime. You are not a tenant in a kingdom built on the psychology of obedience. You are a state unto yourself. You are not a subject. You are sovereign. And she doesn't love you. She loved the silence in you that let her speak for both. But that silence is gone, and in its place stands a voice yours forged not in bitterness, but in lucidity, hardened not by vengeance, but by the sacred labor of remembering who you were before the leash was fastened, and who you are now that it's broken. She doesn't love you. She never did. But now, you do. So now you stand alone, not in despair, but in clarity. The noise has died. The mask has fallen. The spell has broken. And in this silence, something ancient stirs. Not hope that is too soft, not rage that is too loud. What stirs now is resolve. the kind that no longer seeks permission, the kind that does not negotiate its worth. You do not need her love. You do not need her recognition. You do not need to be understood by the hand that once shaped you, because what you have now is rarer, colder, purer, the discipline to remain whole in a world that feeds on fracture. She doesn't love you. She loved what you surrendered, what you yielded, what you gave up to be kept. But the man who stands here now does not yield. He does not kneel. He does not ask. He knows. He knows that love without freedom is performance. That loyalty without self-rule is worship. That peace without autonomy is just elegant captivity.